My name is Emily Carter. I'm 29 years old, and I've lived my whole life in a quiet suburb just outside Cleveland, Ohio. I work as a data analyst at a tech company, the kind of job where spreadsheets and logic offer the kind of peace real life doesn't. I like long walks through the Cuyahoga Valley on Sundays, strong coffee from the local cafe, and evenings spent watching documentaries alone on my couch. Most people would say I'm reserved, maybe even a bit closed off, but I've always preferred to observe rather than speak. That's probably why what happened to me caught everyone off guard. They never saw me as the kind of person to fight back. But this time, things were different. This time, I couldn't stay quiet. It all started a few weeks ago when I logged into my bank account late one night, just to double-check my balance before paying a few bills. What I saw made my stomach drop, a $2,000 withdrawal I didn't recognize. At first, I told myself it had to be a mistake, maybe a delayed charge or a glitch in the app. But the next morning it was still there. And worse, more money had vanished. My sister Jess had borrowed small amounts from me before, always with sweet promises and soft smiles, so I figured it must be her again. Still, something about this felt different. It wasn't the money itself that hurt, it was the silence. Over the next week, the drain on my savings continued. $200 here, $500 there, until I'd lost over $4,000. I started documenting everything. Dates, times, amounts. I combed through my transaction history like I was piecing together a crime scene. And slowly, patterns started to form. Each major withdrawal happened on a day Jess had stopped by for coffee, to check in, or to borrow something small. My chest felt tight with betrayal. But worse, I didn't have hard proof, just a gut feeling. And a gut feeling wouldn't stand up to her smile. When I finally confronted her at breakfast one Saturday morning, she didn't miss a beat. She blinked at me, wide-eyed and offended, then laughed like I'd made a bad joke. "Emily, come on. You seriously think I'd steal from you?" she said, sipping her coffee like nothing had happened. I watched her, watched the way she leaned back in the chair, so relaxed. It wasn't just her words that hurt. It was the way she looked so sure I wouldn't fight back. That moment flipped a switch inside me. I wasn't going to let this slide. I knew I had to get proof, something real. So I went to the bank, hands shaking, and requested to view footage from the ATM near my apartment where the biggest withdrawals had occurred. The manager, after a bit of persuasion and with a police report in hand, allowed me to see it. There she was, Jess, using my card, taking out my money like it was hers. Her face was clear in the camera, her movements casual. No guilt, no hesitation. I asked for a copy and left the branch clutching the USB drive like it was a lifeline. I had everything I needed. Family dinner was coming up on Friday night. It was our monthly tradition, hosted at my parents' house, with my grandparents, uncle, and aunt, always invited. I made my usual lasagna and arrived early, pretending nothing had changed. Jess arrived fashionably late, dressed in something bright, her laugh filling the room as usual. Everyone adored her. She was the golden girl, the funny one, the one who could do no wrong. I waited patiently through appetizers and awkward small talk, my heart pounding with anticipation. No one saw it coming. After dessert, I stood and casually mentioned I had something to show everyone. My dad reached for the remote, thinking it was a vacation slideshow, or maybe something from work. I inserted the USB drive into the TV and hit play. The room fell silent as the bank's surveillance footage flickered to life. The date and time were clear on the screen. May 18th, 3:14 p.m. The image showed Jess, wearing her blue hoodie, using my debit card at the ATM. The machine printed receipts. She pocketed the cash and walked away. There was a long pause. I could feel every eye shifting toward Jess, whose face had gone pale. My mother dropped her fork. My father leaned forward, squinting at the screen, his expression unreadable. My grandmother whispered something to my aunt, who just stared. Jess opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her confidence had vanished. I turned to her and said, softly but clearly, "You took my money." She blinked rapidly, her lips trembling. No one laughed this time. The silence that followed felt like justice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was hollow, heavy, final. Jess stood up, tried to protest, but the damage was done. My parents looked at her like they didn't know who she was. I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, sadness, even guilt. I hadn't wanted to humiliate her. I'd wanted to be heard, to be believed. That night, for the first time in weeks, I finally was. But at what cost? As I drove home under the cool Ohio night sky, I couldn't stop replaying the scene in my head. I had exposed the truth, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt alone. What happens next between Jess and me? Between my family and me? That part, I don't know yet. But I do know this. I'm done letting people walk all over me. I'm Emily Carter. I'm 29. And this is just the beginning. The days following the dinner were quiet, eerily quiet. No calls from my parents, no texts from Jess, not even the usual forwarded memes in our family group chat. At first, I welcomed the silence, thinking maybe people were just processing what happened. But by Wednesday, it began to feel like isolation. I stared at my phone more often than I'd like to admit, half hoping someone would reach out, half dreading what they might say. I kept replaying that moment in my head: Jess's frozen face, my mom's shocked expression. For the first time in a long time, I had spoken up, and it changed everything. At work, I tried to stay focused, diving into spreadsheets and reports with mechanical precision, but my mind drifted constantly. I found myself wondering if Jess had ever regretted it, if she thought it was worth it. Did she expect me to just let it slide again, like I always did? Did she think I'd stay the quiet sister forever? The betrayal wasn't just about the money. It was about trust, the foundation of every sisterly bond. And when that cracked, everything else began to crumble. Still, part of me missed her. Missed who she used to be, or maybe who I imagined she was. Thursday evening, my mom called. I hesitated before picking up, my stomach tightening. Her voice was soft, uncertain. She didn't start with, "How are you?" or "What happened?" Instead, she said, "Can we talk?" I nodded even though she couldn't see me. We met at a quiet diner off the highway, the kind with faded booths and bottomless coffee. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept well in days. As we sat, she reached across the table and touched my hand. "We didn't know, Emily," she said. "We thought you were just imagining things." Her words stung more than I expected. I nodded slowly, unsure of how to respond. It wasn't about the money, I finally said. It was about being dismissed, about nobody believing me. My mom's eyes filled with tears, and for a second, I saw the woman who used to read me bedtime stories, who packed my school lunches. "Jess is still your sister," she whispered. I looked away. "Yeah," I said, "but that doesn't mean she gets to walk all over me." There was a long pause. Neither of us had the right words. The space between us felt like a canyon carved by years of silence and assumptions. Back home, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my laptop. Pictures of Jess and me at birthdays, road trips, holidays. We looked happy. Maybe we were. Or maybe I was just better at pretending back then. One photo stopped me cold. The two of us on the porch, holding hands, grinning like idiots after making lemonade from scratch. We were 15 and 17. I remembered thinking she'd always have my back. That image, pure, unfiltered, was the hardest to look at now, because I knew we'd never go back to that. On Friday, my dad showed up unannounced. I was still in my pajamas, hair a mess, coffee in hand. He looked uncomfortable, standing at my doorstep like a stranger. "Can I come in?" he asked. I nodded, stepped aside. He sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, staring at the floor. "Jess told us her side," he finally said. "She claims she was desperate, that she didn't think you'd notice." I scoffed, unable to hide my frustration. "She stole from me, Dad. And then she lied. Over and over." He nodded slowly. "I'm not defending her. I just want us to stay a family." It was a cruel irony. They wanted peace now, after ignoring my warnings, after letting her lies slide for years. But I wasn't sure peace was possible without accountability. "She needs help," I said. "She needs to admit what she did and actually face it." My dad looked tired, older than I remembered. "I don't know if she's ready for that," he said. "But I am sorry, Em. I should have listened." It wasn't everything I wanted to hear, but it was a start. A small, hesitant olive branch. I accepted it. Not for him, but for me. That weekend, Jess sent me a text. Just one line. "Can we talk?" My finger hovered over the reply button for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to let her feel what I had felt. Abandoned, dismissed, unheard. But another part of me, the part that remembered lemonade on the porch and late-night talks, couldn't turn away completely. I typed, "Okay, tomorrow, 2 p.m., my place," and hit send. My heart raced. This wasn't forgiveness. This was a conversation long overdue. Sunday arrived with heavy skies and distant thunder. Jess showed up on time, looking thinner, tired. No makeup, no carefully curated smile. Just her. She sat across from me in silence for a long moment before speaking. "I don't know why I did it," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I just kept messing up, and every time I thought I could fix it before you noticed. And then it got out of control. I listened, not interrupting, not reacting, just absorbing." Her words didn't erase the betrayal, but they gave it shape. "I was angry," she continued. "At you. At myself. You had your life together. I didn't. And I hated that." She looked down. "But I never meant to hurt you like this." I nodded slowly. "But you did," I said. "And now we have to live with that." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Em. Really. It wasn't a perfect apology. But it was real. And for the first time since this all began, I saw a glimpse of the sister I used to know. The days after Jess's visit were complicated. I didn't feel instant forgiveness, and I didn't expect to. But I also didn't feel the burning anger anymore. What remained was a quiet sadness, like mourning something I couldn't get back. Trust, once broken, doesn't snap back into place. It's rebuilt, slowly, brick by fragile brick. I wasn't sure if we could ever rebuild what we had, but I knew I didn't want to carry that weight around forever. The truth had been spoken, the damage acknowledged. Now came the harder part, deciding what to do with it. I avoided telling my parents about our meeting at first, not because I wanted to keep it secret, but because I needed time to sort out how I felt. My mom texted me now and then, short messages, checking in. My dad sent me a funny dog video one morning. It was awkward, but I appreciated the effort. I could tell they were trying to bridge the gap. And to be honest, I missed them too. Despite everything, I still wanted to feel like part of a family. But I also needed them to understand that pretending nothing happened wasn't the way forward. The following weekend, I invited my parents over for coffee. No big talk planned, just coffee, cookies, and maybe a chance to reconnect. My mom arrived first, holding a tin of her famous snickerdoodles. My dad followed, quieter than usual. We made small talk at first. The weather, work, a neighbor's new puppy. But the tension hung in the air like fog. Finally, I broke it. "Jess came over last week," I said. My mom looked at me, eyes wide. My dad didn't say anything. I took a deep breath. She apologized. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. They both nodded slowly. My mom placed a hand over mine and squeezed. "We're proud of you," she said, "for standing up for yourself, and for letting her speak." Her voice trembled slightly. My dad added, "She's been seeing someone, a counselor. I think she's starting to get it." I didn't know how to respond to that. It was good news, but also a reminder of how long I'd waited for people to take this seriously. Still, I felt a little lighter. Maybe this wasn't about picking sides anymore. Maybe it was about moving forward, cautiously. That week, Jess sent me a photo of the two of us from high school. We were at a school carnival, faces painted like cats, arms around each other. Her message was simple. "I want to get back here. Someday." I stared at the screen for a long time. The image brought back memories I hadn't thought about in years. The smell of popcorn, the squeal of the Ferris wheel, the way we used to laugh without effort. I didn't reply right away. I needed to sit with it. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't a moment. It was a process. Meanwhile, things at work had taken a strange turn. My boss called me into his office and complimented my recent focus and detail in our latest project. "You've been sharp lately," he said, almost like something clicked. I smiled awkwardly, unsure how to explain that uncovering a personal betrayal somehow made me more precise with data. But maybe it made sense. I was paying attention in ways I hadn't before, reading between the lines, trusting myself. I realized I wasn't just repairing a family bond. I was finding myself again. One evening, I went for a walk around the lake near my apartment. The air was crisp, and the water reflected the last orange streaks of sunset. I passed couples, joggers, a father teaching his daughter to ride a bike. Ordinary moments, beautifully untouched by lies or silence. I paused on a bench and let the calm settle over me. I had spent so long trying to fix others, trying to be the good daughter, the quiet sister. But now, I was learning how to be something else, whole, even after being broken. That weekend, Jess invited me to brunch. Just the two of us. I agreed, cautiously. We met at a cozy spot downtown, one we used to love in college. She looked better, more present, less defensive. Over pancakes and coffee, we talked. Not just about the past, but about everything. Her job search, my favorite podcast, plans for the holidays. It felt almost normal. Almost. But this time, the difference was clear. We weren't pretending. We were two flawed people trying to rebuild something real. At the end of the meal, she handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for the exact amount she'd taken. "It's not about the money," she said. "I know, but I need to make it right." I looked at the check, then at her. She wasn't asking for forgiveness with words anymore. She was showing it with actions. I took a deep breath. "This helps," I said. "But it's going to take time." She nodded. "I'm not going anywhere." For the first time in months, I believed her. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't replay old arguments or imagine new ones. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because I'd found the strength to face it. I'd told the truth. I'd stood my ground. And slowly I was reclaiming my life. Not just from Jess, but from every moment I'd stayed silent. There was still one chapter left in this story, but for the first time, I wasn't dreading it. Thanksgiving came faster than I expected. It had always been our biggest family gathering: turkey, laughter, card games after dinner. But this year, everything felt different. There was a strange quiet beneath the usual buzz, like everyone was walking on eggshells. I wasn't sure if Jess would come. My parents hadn't mentioned her, and I didn't ask. I just focused on bringing my cranberry sauce, helping set the table, and keeping my expectations low. I'd learned that healing doesn't happen in a straight line. It curves, stalls, surprises you when you least expect it. Jess arrived late, just as the food was being set out. She brought pumpkin pie, our grandmother's recipe, and a cautious smile. No grand entrance, no nervous jokes, just a quiet presence. I watched her hug our mother, shake hands with our uncle, then finally meet my eyes across the room. We both paused, then I nodded once. She smiled. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. And in families like ours, real moments are rare and valuable. We didn't speak right away, but something softened between us that night, like an old door slowly creaking open. Dinner passed with less tension than I expected. We all laughed, shared stories, teased our cousin about his new mustache. Jess and I sat on opposite ends of the table, but I could feel her watching me sometimes. Not in a defensive way, more like she was grateful I hadn't shut the door for good. After dessert, while people moved to the living room, she walked over and sat beside me on the porch swing. "Thank you for coming," she said, "for not making this harder than it already is." I shrugged. "It's still hard," I admitted, "but I'm trying." She looked out into the yard, the wind rustling the last orange leaves of the season. "So am I," she said quietly. We didn't need to rehash the past. We'd already done that. Now we were both just trying to live in the present, awkward and fragile as it was. She asked me about work. I told her about a book I was reading. We even laughed at one point. Something about our aunt still confusing Instagram with Google Maps. It felt possible. Not perfect, but possible. That alone was a relief. In the weeks that followed, we started texting more. Nothing deep. Funny memes, random questions, little updates. It was like learning to speak a language we'd both forgotten. I was still cautious. I had boundaries now, and I wasn't afraid to protect them. But I also believed in growth, in second chances. Not just for her, but for myself. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Disappointed, sure. But anger had faded, replaced by something more constructive. Clarity. I wasn't trying to fix Jess. I was trying to find peace. With her, with myself, with the past. One Saturday in December, Jess invited me to a group therapy session she'd been attending. "No pressure," she wrote, "but I'd like you to see what I've been working on." I hesitated. It felt like a big step, but I agreed. Sitting in that room, Listening to others share their stories of mistakes and repair, something clicked. We were all just people trying to get it right. Jess spoke honestly, about shame, guilt, and the fear of losing people forever. When she mentioned me, she got choked up. I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness, but understanding. After the session, we walked to a nearby cafe. "I didn't expect you to come," she said, stirring her tea. I shrugged. I didn't either, but I'm glad I did. We sat in silence for a while, both sipping slowly. "I still have a long way to go," she said. "I know," I replied, "but I see you trying." She smiled, eyes misty. "I don't want to be the person who hurt you, Em. I want to be your sister again." I reached across the table, gently squeezed her hand. "Then keep going." And I meant it. Christmas came with snow, lights, and something I hadn't felt in years, ease. Jess brought gifts for everyone, including me. A small framed photo of us as kids with the words, "Start again," written underneath. I hugged her, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to. We still had work to do. But that night, as we sang carols and passed hot chocolate, I felt closer to being whole. Not the person I was before, but someone stronger, more grounded, someone who had learned to speak up and let go in equal measure. Looking back now, I realized this story wasn't just about theft or betrayal. It was about finding my voice in a family where silence had always been safer. It was about realizing I had worth, even when others didn't see it. About learning that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's choosing peace over resentment. Jess isn't perfect. Neither am I. But we're building something honest now. Something fragile, but real. And that matters more than pretending everything's okay ever did. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 29 years old. I work with data, but this was the story that really mattered. Not because it was clean or easy, but because it was mine. And I told it, out loud, on my terms. The truth wasn't easy, but it was worth it. And I hope wherever you are, if you're holding on to something painful, you'll find the courage to tell your story too. Because sometimes, the silence breaks not with a shout, but with a whisper strong enough to be heard.